Hello, everybody. This is Reanimated, podcast about zombies and whatnot. I'm Stuart, one of your hosts. The other two legs of the stool this morning are H.A. Conrad in New York. Good morning, H.A.
Good morning.
Hello. And Kyle Diaz in Seattle. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Wonderful. Wunderbar. Today, we are going to be continuing our ongoing recap review of The Last of Us Season 2 with Episode 4, Day 1. And we have just a tiny bit of news because there's not a whole bunch out there, but there was a very interesting trailer and a film announcement to cover. So I don't
Yeah,
know if either of you have had a chance to watch the God Save
I did.
Birmingham
I
video.
did, and it was like it was kind of engrossing. I actually wanted it to go on a little bit more. So
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, as you like, I'd probably like watch somebody play this game, but like I don't know. It seemed it was also stressing me out watching it.
It's very
So
stressful. This looks like an extremely difficult game to play. Because basically the guy he gets exhausted within moments of doing anything, and there's all these like notifications at the top of the screen about like how he's tired or he's thirsty or his leg hurts because he falls out of a window at one point. This is definitely in the category of video game trailers that are very managed. It doesn't probably reflect actual gameplay, I would say, but extremely challenging looking and a lot of grunting and groaning. Kyle, did you have a chance to look at it?
I did have the chance to watch. It looks like fun. I like the stripped down nature of it. The fact that there's really not a huge inventory, no firearms, nothing like that. So it looks like it could be fun. There's this like artifice with video games that it's really hard to overcome without it being just kind of a grunt work exercise. You know, he does still have all of this inventory that he can just pull out. He's got like all this stuff around his belt that would be really bulky to move in real life and stuff like that. But it does look like fun.
Yeah.
I
It's
did notice.
also set during the Black Death, which is interesting just as a carryover from last week when we were talking about Rapture, the upcoming film.
Yeah, I did notice how exhausted he gets, and I thought, oh, it's probably because there's not a lot of nutrition and stuff around.
Yeah,
He just gets like he's just tired as a baseline.
you get the sense that everybody in the 14th century was pretty tired.
You probably.
And then there was a plague. So yeah, God Save Birmingham. That is like the second medieval zombie game that I'm actually looking for. There's another one called Blight that there hasn't been a lot of news about lately. And I don't know, maybe they just took that game and made it this game. I'm not even sure, but it does feel like suddenly there's a bit of a glut of medieval zombie stuff between film and video games that are coming out. So God Save Birmingham. Let's see when it comes. I'm not sure when it's supposed to come out, but that was a pretty advanced trailer. So in a year or so. And then Zero Protocol is a film announced with an actress who is very recognizable. She was like the Mandarin's girlfriend or something, I want to say. Uh, in Iron Man 2, perhaps, or 3. Iron Man 3?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, she was in that film. Otherwise, I recognize her face, but I don't really know what she's been in. And this will be she will be, I think, a New York police commissioner managing a citywide zombie outbreak, which is kind of a cool premise. I like the idea of watching management to deal with a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, definitely. And there's other people. I saw like Andy Serkis is one of the producers attached to this.
Yeah, I guess his production company is going to be involved.
Yeah. But it looks pretty good, although really it's just like kind of an announcement, so I guess we'll have to see a little bit more of the details, but you know, I'm interested.
We'll have to look for more updates as production begins, which is slated for later this year, which means this movie isn't coming out till 2027. We'll
Rebecca
have,
Hall, who's the lead actress here,
yeah.
was absolutely phenomenal in a movie called The Night House, which came out a few years ago, in which a woman is haunted by grief and also possibly the ghost of her dead husband.
Sweet.
Um, she was excellent in it. The movie is quite scary. I would not have watched that film and thought this lady reminds me of a New York City police commissioner on any level. So I'm very
Maybe
just
that's not her role
I
she's going to
think
play,
that
but
That's a good point, but I think if that's the role that she plays, it would have to be quite a transformation because she's just not that vibe necessarily. So I'm curious to see what comes of this. But she
I'm
was very
curious,
good in The
what
Lighthouse.
is the police commissioner vibe that you would expect someone to have?
She's very in this film. She's very vulnerable and I don't know. Yeah, there's a police commissioner stereotype, kind of like tough, in command of the situation, emotionally, kind of confident that that's not her role in this film at all. And
Okay.
that's the only thing I've seen her in.
If it is the lady I'm thinking of, she is like Iron Man's ex-girlfriend in in Iron Man 3. So, and she's a bit of a jilted lover, but who has a good story arc. Don't want to spoil Iron Man 3 for anybody who hasn't seen it. So I think
I've seen it, I just don't remember it.
she can do tough and certainly disappointed in Tony Stark. So if that doesn't scream police commissioner to everybody, I don't know what does.
Yeah. I mean, she's been, when I looked at her, just her filmography, she's been in an enormous amount of things and projects. So I'm excited to see this. I'm very curious to see if where they actually film. Often they've been doing these things in Vancouver, but from time to time, if it's a smaller production, you might see
Well,
something in New York. So we'll have to wait and see a little bit more about
there
this.
was a headline just yesterday about New York bumping up its incentives to film there.
Yes, and they've been doing that, but it's still a very expensive place to film, so it depends on the project and the scope.
Yeah. I feel
But
like it
yeah,
was 700 million. It felt like a pretty, I mean, if it's only one film, that's a really good budget, but obviously that would be spread across many different projects.
yeah, and I mean it's also just depending on where and how, because the traffic and everything. So you see, there's actually a lot that happens in Brooklyn just because you'll see just tons of stuff in Gowanus. Like The Americans was filmed like in and around there all the time. So maybe we'll see some of this. This could be interesting. I'm definitely excited to learn more about this as it gets into production.
Yeah, cool. And that will be, I've already forgotten the name of it. That will be Zero Protocol. It's sounds like one of those fake movie titles from Seinfeld when they would go be like, "Oh, let's go see Prognosis Negative."
Yeah. That's
Zero Protocol. Okay, well, coming soon. And that brings us though to The Last of Us season 2 episode 4 entitled Day 1, directed by Katie Heron. Kate Heron? Don't want to make her a Katie if she's a Kate. She's a Kate. Written by Craig Mazin. And this is an episode of this TV show. All right. Any overarching comments before we dive into plot?
I think think we can get into it. I'm very curious. As I was watching this, I'm very excited to hear what Kyle thinks about all the Seattle scenes.
Oh,
So,
very recognizable Seattle scenes, no doubt.
I think my only so we'll get into the Seattle stuff. It's very good. But the only overarching thing I had is that I think we just have to acknowledge, and it's something the show is going to have to deal with, and I think it's doing a pretty good job. But I think we just have to acknowledge that there is a Pedro Pascal sized hole in this show now,
yep.
and it is just it's just something missing. He was so much a part of this show for so long, and he was so compelling to watch, and it is a little tough to get over what he brought to the whole thing. So it's not exactly a critique of this episode. I just want to acknowledge it because I think probably a lot of people are feeling it, and they're just, wanting their Joel back in their show. So
Well, Kyle, I'll see your half critique of the Pedro Pascal sized hole and raise you that now it has a Jeffrey Wright sized not hole but presence, and we get to start the show with scenes with Jeffrey Wright, which is a great thing in my opinion, and I'm so glad that he's in this season and playing the role that he actually voiced and was the character was modeled on him in the video game too. So that's
Yeah,
just cool to see.
I was thinking similar thoughts, Kyle, but then I was also thinking that this actually is almost like a true grieving process, both for the fans and for the characters. So the whole is noticeable, but I also think it's somewhat deliberate. And so, and then introducing Jeffrey Wright, who I just adore this actor, and I'm really excited to see him. If anything, I wanted to see more of him, and I think we will, hopefully, in the remaining episodes. But this, you can feel the absence of Joel, and this is almost like a real like watching a process in real time. And so I don't know. I wasn't, I hear you, but I also am very curious to see the rest of what happens. And I do think that it's intriguing, and there's enough of interest to me just in sort of seeing this other world and what's happening with the like the history, the flashbacks in this I thought were really, really cool. So let's get into it.
Yeah, we do open with that flashback of a lot of Fedra guys being jerks in the back of a truck. Kind of a nice storytelling moment here with one douchebag talking about Greenberg and speaking derisively about voters. And at the culmination of this story where he's, they're all laughing about some citizens getting beaten up for handing out pamphlets. Jeffrey Wright's character lifts his head and pronounces that they're all a bunch of douchebags or thoughtless. And then they get into a bit of a blockade.
Hey
Um,
Stuart, can I ask you?
yeah,
And I don't want to get too, much into your past, but you have some experience in the, you know, the armed forces. Is this a is this a vibe that you recognize from your time there, or is this kind of like a media or writerly representation of what, a group of soldiers is like?
this does not reflect my experience at all. But then again, I was not in the army where I feel like this might have more of a chance of happening. Um, no,
Okay,
I could see how it could happen, sure. Um, but no, not my experience.
good to know. Thank you.
Uh,
I love his comment to the douchebag because the douchebag says something like, I didn't mean anything by it. And Isaac says, "Of course you didn't. You're thoughtless," which I just thought was such a great comeback. It's like you're not even smart enough to know you're insulting me. You know what I mean?
mhm. Yeah. So we get right away a sense of Isaac, Sergeant Isaac's morality in this first couple lines of dialogue. HA?
I also thought that this was just a very good illustration of a group dynamic, and just with you can tell exactly who the the people are in this transport.
Yeah. Yeah, there's three
And
kinds of people in the back of that truck, right?
right. And it does an excellent job. And I think Jeffrey Wright, it was just I was like, oh, it's so on now when he like and he doesn't have that much dialogue here. He just very quickly sort of solidifies exactly where he stands.
Yeah.
And that was so I thought that that was a really excellent little bit of writing and acting on everybody's part.
You can imagine that Isaac has really kept his mouth shut and his thoughts to himself to have let this culture sort of be as dominant as it is in front of him as their commanding officer. But also, given what he's about to do, he must just like have zero fucks left to give because he's just like, no, I'm going to tell you you're thoughtless and I'm going to tell you you're all Greenberg right before the acts that that come directly after this. But he also is, counseling, let's not lock and load. I'm going to go out and talk to them. You guys stay here. It's going to be fine. Um, but yeah, I just like to think that up until this point, Isaac has just been like sitting there and stewing while his charges run their mouths all the time. Uh,
Well, it seems like he's had to hide what his
yeah,
agenda is.
if he
And
had telegraphed it too much, the whole grenade in the back of the truck thing wouldn't have gone over, or they would have seen it coming, perhaps. Uh, and so he does at the last second invite the rookie out with him, learn something, he says to this guy. And and then yeah, like I've said, he just introduces himself to Hanrahan, this woman who is we don't know, but we can assume she's WLF. And because they say at first like it could be them. even though nobody has weapons. But then, just calmly throws two grenades in the back of the truck. I do wonder if these trucks would really be able to get locked from the outside. I feel like that's a huge,
Yeah, it seems like
huge
a terrible
liability.
idea.
Yeah.
Be a problem.
Like you roll up to a riot and the rioters just lock you inside your truck, and that's the end of the police force. Yeah. So probably a little unrealistic there, but it made for a cool effect.
I like that
Um,
he recognizes during the conversation that the rookie is looking for a leader, basically. He didn't spare him because he saw something like good in him, I don't think. I think he spared him because he saw that he essentially wanted to be told what to do and would make a good follower.
mhm. I concur. He wasn't laughing with gusto, along with the other Greenbergs in the back of the truck. So he decided to give him a chance. And I love the way he delivers this line after he throws grenades in the back of the truck, then shoots the driver, then turns around and he's shouldered his weapon already. He's being super calm otherwise. And then he just says to the guy, "Make your choice," or "Now make your choice." And the way he says it, I just loved it. I love Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, it's like he almost forgot about him for a minute.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now you do your thing. And she tells him, "Welcome to the fight," which is also funny because clearly, I mean, you can imagine that Fedra has been doing a lot of fighting, but now he's in the fight. And that's the end of the opening flashback. And we flash back forward to present day, quote unquote, Seattle. Ellie and Dina are riding through war-torn or overgrown Seattle that is very leafy. Well, I guess first we kind of just see them in the pharmacy. Mostly Dina. Ellie's outside, a disembodied voice.
I thought this was a missed opportunity. There's a beloved Seattle drugstore called Bartell's. That's kind of a local chain that people used to really like, and then they got bought by, I want to say, Rite Aid and run into the ground, and now they mostly closed. But I thought this was a missed opportunity to show a Bartell's sign there, which would have been a really kind of like Seattle touch. Instead, I think it's just like Wharton's Pharmacy or something that I don't think is a local chain.
I think that's a brand that you see in the game in Seattle. Weston.
Okay. Yeah, it would have been a nice opportunity to kind of show some Seattle flavor there. I thought it was a missed chance. It's like the Dwayne Reed of Seattle.
This is the commentary I'm looking for, Kyle.
Obscure Seattle area, drugstore chains.
I mean, they had a, what, was it a Wawa or no? What was the something farm in the first season? It was like a gas station that's apparently a
Oh,
very ubiquitous brand,
Cumberland Farms.
Cumberland Farms. Um, so they didn't shy away from using actual brands in season one, but Weston is fictional from the video game. And so I think you do see a couple of those in the game.
Yeah, one thing I'll admit, this was like, and I thought it in the last episode, I'm like, are they really gonna do it? And they did it. But just sort of like, I think that I'm gonna be all spoilery and whatever, but I knew immediately what they were having Dina look at, like that she found of interest in the pharmacy, and then there's this kind of thing where I think it's, again, I don't know exactly how you would announce it, but it just seems kind of annoying that it's just such a trope where she's like puking in one scene and then it's like, I'm pregnant. So I don't know. I was slightly annoyed just by that part. Just because it's like, all right, it's obvious that she's looking at pregnancy tests, in my opinion, but um
I think they do a little bit of work. I mean, I knew this because I know the plot, but or some of it anyway. But they do a little bit of work to make keep you guessing. Later on, there's a scene where she's throwing up again, and she makes this high kind of pitched noise as she's throwing up, and it's enough to make me think that sounds like a clicker kind of noise that she's making as she's throwing up.
okay, I didn't
They
catch
don't
that.
linger on it very long. It kind of goes past, and if you've already done the math on puking and seeing something in a pharmacy right after you see the Monistat 7, you're like, okay, what else is going to be right there?
Well, it was more because she's like, I'm gonna pee, and I'm like, really? So I'm like, damn it. Did you have to do that? Anyway, so
And then they find the tank and had a little bit of commentary on this looked like Fedra on Fedra, which we've already seen in the trailer or the flashback. Um, and then they find or they see the satellite dish with WLF written quite large on it and make their plan eventually on what to do next. So actually, no, it's been a couple of episodes since you guys were both saying like I don't know what they're gonna do next, but you know, what do you how do you feel about their approach here? They just arrived in Seattle. They don't know like we do that there's a million WLF people.
Yeah, but they're still being, to me, no matter what, they're still being like stupid. Like they're really being just not cautious enough. They have a horse, so I guess that makes it hard to be a little subtle, but like I just to me they are, this is not the way you should be going in. And even if they don't know that there's all these people about, they have an idea that the WLF is there. They also know that they're highly trained. So I feel like they're not exactly being careful in this. And they also don't know the level of, are there, clickers or other things walking around here. So I like it, and I guess maybe it would be easy to have your defenses down if everything feels this abandoned, but this isn't their first rodeo. So it does trouble me a little bit that they're just kind of out and about and making noise, and to me being a little bit obvious, but
At least they have
yeah.
a reaction to when the tank hatch slams. There's, we get to see Dina, who isn't, yeah, it isn't their first rodeo. They've shown that they have a tactical sense of how to approach clicker nests.
Yeah, except then you go off and you're playing drums. Like, give me a break.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Kyle. What do you think?
Well, first of all, there was something that I thought was kind of funny was that she picks up the monostat inside the pharmacy,
Mhm.
and I was just like, it just is really funny to think about them having to battle, funguses in various ways still in this new world. Like maybe there's some sort of industrial grade monostat they could like spray out of like, water cannons onto all the infected or something like that. Um, the Capitol Hill area that they're exploring is a kind of a famous Seattle neighborhood. It is a very gay friendly part of Seattle. It's kind of, Seattle's historically gay neighborhood. So I love when they see the sign, the rainbow flags, and they're kind of like, what, well, why are they so happy? Like, what do you suppose all this is about? That all of this stuff reads very well as Capitol Hill, including the old record store. So um, that part where they're exploring, I wasn't really nitpicking the, sound they were making or anything because it seems like really large swaths of this world have either no or limited zombie activity. And so it just seems for whatever, however we feel about it, the creators seem to be telling us there are certain places where you just don't really have to worry about, zombies. So I was just kind of enjoying watching them wander through something that's a pretty good, view of what this neighborhood in Seattle is like until they get to the music store, which is another scene that I really thought was well done.
Yeah, the music store is an optional sort of moment that you can take in the video game. Maybe not the whole store, but certainly the serenade. But Bella Ramsey learned to play this song. They already know how to play guitar, and so that went, I think, really well. It's a pretty iconic moment from the game where Ellie plays for Dina. And I really liked Isabella Merced's performance here.
I feel like we have not talked about her enough this commentary in the commentaries this season.
No?
She is crushing it as Dina. She is so
Yeah.
good and brings such a like a liveliness to her role and energy. She's just really, really fun to watch and humanizes and grounds the show in a lot of ways because she has very human reactions to things. I just think she's doing an incredible job. Bella Ramsey too, as we talked about last episode, but we haven't talked enough about Isabella, I think, this season.
I think that the other, she's doing amazingly well, and I think that you really believe the relationship that they have and how it's growing, but also, again, because of both of their connection with Joel, that has made it even deeper and just kind of finding their way after that. And understanding that both of them are grieving too, is I think it makes this like a fantastic character, and she like I totally agree. She's absolutely crushing it, and like it's also just this real moment um as she's watching her play, and it's also a beautiful scene regardless, and it's this real like just this little moment of peace and vulnerability, and I thought that this was just an incredibly strong scene in the show. So this is definitely I want to see more of her. They actually did a whole feature about Isabella in the New York Times, I think a week or so ago.
Yeah, I feel like she's been getting a lot of press.
Yeah. So I think it's being noticed, and it's such a strong part of the show that I think she's just absolutely nailing this. I don't know how like the character, just in terms of like how this relationship is evolving. We'll have to see what happens, but I just think this was sort of the anchor of the show, but then it just gets increasingly more intense, and I really like the trajectory that this is going in.
I'll tell you what was intense, waiting to see if she was going to try to go for the high note.
I you know what? You're totally right. I'm like, no way. She's gonna nope, nope. And you
Nope,
can't.
nope. She made the same choice I would have made, but I can't say I wasn't a little disappointed. As anybody who's done Take On Me in karaoke will tell you, if you want to get that high note, you have to go in full steam. You can't hesitate about it at all.
And it's a very understated version of the song, so there's no full blast on her vocals.
I will say the pop culture references of this show are very Gen X coded.
Hmm.
Oh,
Like we get Take on Me. Like last week they talked about Frank Zappa, which is like I was kind of like there's nobody that age who would know who Frank. People don't even know who that Frank Zappa is now. Last season we got Linda major references to Linda Ronstadt and like
Depeche
Depeche
Mode.
Mode.
Yeah.
And I will say, as a you know, and as a millennial, kind of an elder millennial, but still a millennial, I was in basically middle school in the 90s and high school in the 2000s. And I don't see our generation's music represented very much in pop culture. I feel like the 80s have kind of been rehabilitated. Like when I was a kid, everybody just kind of knew, it was like an offhand, like, oh, 80s music sucks. It's so corporate and glam and sellouts and stuff like that. And now everybody loves Toto. Everybody loves, Aha, like all of these kind of 80s things are considered to be kind of fun and kitschy and retro. The apocalypse happened in 2003. I would have loved if she played a cover of like Slide by the Goo Goo Dolls, Jumper by Third Eye Blind, Nickelback, How You Remind Me, like something from that era. It would
Nickelback
have made me
style.
feel very, very represented. But
Never
instead,
knew
they're
that.
continuing to cast back to the 80s. So
I firmly reject your wish.
I feel like
Uh,
Druckmann and Mason have both been unapologetic about being like, nah, we like this music. We're not gonna put in other music.
because they're also they're children of the 70s, and
Yeah.
the in-universe explanation is that Joel, it was who taught Ellie how to play guitar, and he was also, Gen X age. So I get it. I'm just as a millennial, I'm like, when are we gonna get our like Big Chill, our movie where all the music from my childhood is used in these montages and rehabilitated? And it has not happened yet.
you're gonna have to wait a really long time, just like we did, Kyle. Sorry. But I think no, but to your point, I also think it's if the creators are more of the millennial like flavor, that's what happens. I do think that there is stuff out there that is celebrating millennialism, but I do think um right now especially is sort of like the zeitgeist of bringing back all of that. And it's really funny how things come full circle. And to your point, people were always like, oh, 80s, like this and that. But now it's just one of those things that for the moment anyway is having its time. And bizarrely, in a lot of zombie films and movies and shows, the 80s are like coming back full force. So it's gonna come around, Kyle. I have faith.
Yeah.
I'll just have to keep hoping, for my Matchbox 20 showing up in in some piece of
Hey,
media.
that made it that wasn't that featured in like the Barbie movie? You've had your moment to
That's
shine.
true.
You're done.
Greta Gerwig is gonna bring it back single-handedly for us millennials.
Hmm.
So after this scene, which is very touching and lovely, we transition to nightfall and they approach the television station. They are concerned about the approach because they're like, well, yeah, Dina has actually been the one bringing up all these concerns, like, oh, they have a big sign. That means there are probably a lot of them because why would they put a big sign on there if there weren't? And so they take a cautious approach, but then they find this broken window with blood on it, and I'm just like, oh my God, you'd be like, that's the way in we're gonna take is the one with the blood, but that is the one that they take. They make their way inside and immediately find a body with like 8 arrows sticking out of its torso. I do like the theme of this episode that is like Dina going, "What the hell is wrong with this place? What's wrong with the people here?" Because they definitely have one of those moments when they go farther into the TV station, and find all the bodies hanging from the roof or from the ceiling with their guts hanging down.
I guess I like in this moment just because of that, I guess it wasn't that much time, but I would want to be out of there as quickly as possible, not knowing if the people who have done this are still hanging out.
Yeah,
Or what, and obviously this is part of the plot, but I kept like I had such a level of like stress watching this scene for so many reasons that I'm like, get out, just get out.
yeah.
And then of course all hell breaks loose eventually, but I just this there were so many moments in this episode that stressed me out beyond belief. So, which was I'm sure the intention.
Yeah, this starts off a sequence of very stressful scenes, but
Yes.
very iconic. Like going from the guitar playing to the TV station to the subway, just like really huge visuals from the video game that I was really happy to see. But so yeah, this is where Dina throws up and makes that kind of higher pitched noise that it sounds like I feel like it had to have been on purpose. She kind of just makes this noise that sounds like people who are infected make. Like that stalker had been making in the grocery store. That sort of noise, which I feel like I don't know, people make all kinds of noises when they throw up. But I
I
felt
mean,
like that one.
it's not too late for it to still be part of it. So maybe that's something else they're looking to tie up later. We don't know.
I do agree with you though. They're only in there for a minute or two, and then they find the walkie-talkie on one of the guards. They have that realization like they might have called for, backup. They're like, yeah, let's get out of here. And that's exactly when the backup arrives, of course. I think the dialogue here was a little dumb, where the lead soldier is like, I don't care if there's a baby or no, not a baby, but I don't care if there's a kid in here. We're gonna kill that kid. Just like, all right, guys, let's dial it back.
Um,
I don't feel like anybody would actually say that.
I do love that, Dina and Ellie have just been kind of like la-di-daing their way through the American West since leaving Jackson, really not facing any sort of resistance or peril at all. And then they get to Seattle and they immediately walk into the middle of a extremely live conflict between two absolutely brutal sides. And it's just like, I feel like this is a real wake up moment for them, or it should have been, or they're just like, oh shit, the things over here are so much more complicated than we thought. We need to leave. We need to get out of here.
I feel
oh,
like I've missed the second scene with Jeffrey Wright. I forget when that happens.
Yeah, I thought that had happened already by this because I think we had some sense of the two sides by the
Yeah,
time
because
they get to the.
it's pretty close together.
yeah.
And this is his second and last scene in this episode. Let's quickly talk about that before we finish the TV station. Um, because it starts with him talking to some pots and pans. He's talking to somebody off screen. Kyle, how quickly did you know it was a torture scene?
Immediately,
As soon as he turns on the stove?
as soon as he turns on the stove. There's just something about his attitude and the fact that they're not showing you who he's talking to.
Yeah.
The only, for some reason, I thought maybe there's an infected in the room that he's keeping for some purpose or another, a la, the governor. Um, but pretty quickly you understand that this is not a conversation on any level. Although the reverse shot is still very striking. Um,
Well, they
how
decided to go with
how they're
full.
keeping that person.
They decided to, as a show, to go with full frontal male nudity, which you don't see very often. It has to, the decision making process for that was like, they've dehumanized this guy just by the way that they're keeping him chained to the wall. I don't know. That was pretty striking to me, just because of how rarely you see that on
Yeah,
TV.
that person is so vulnerable.
Yeah, and I also think that once again, the scene did such an amazing job in illustrating where he is now in this world and such a huge contrast from where he was at the beginning of the episode. So this is um really, I mean, it was really honestly a difficult scene. And he is an incredible actor, and he's really just um his everything that he does in this scene is terrifying to me. So,
What
and
about his charming story about wanting to own some nice pots and pans?
right. And but the other pan is gonna fall. Um this is just like, I wasn't quite sure where it was going to end up, although it ended up about where I thought it would. Um but this is a really he's such an incredible actor. And then it also shows the other character too, the rookie from the beginning and where he is as well. And so I just think it does an incredible job at setting the table about who he is at this point in time and how honestly how terrifying
Yeah.
he is in this moment.
I mean, it's been 11 years, but yeah, the rookie's no longer a rookie, that's for sure. Now he is worse than a Greenberg.
I think it's really
Um,
interesting that um, they introduced Jeffrey Wright, and he is this completely calm, deadly, effective person, right? At the scene with the soldiers at the beginning. And then the next time you see him, he's completely impotent. I mean, he is so charismatic that you are swept up in his speech and everything, but his torture is, in the end, ineffective. And the zealot, when the zealot, they cut to him and or Jeffrey Wright turns, and I think the camera kind of pans over and he's already holding
I
out his other hand to get
love
burned.
that. Love that
I
scene.
loved that, and it totally shut him down. In that
Yep.
moment, Isaac knew, hey, there's nothing I can do here. I
And
just think it's a
before
very,
that, when the zealot is like, "Look, every day you lose people and we gain them," Jeffrey Wright's reaction to that also was incredibly well done.
yeah, I agree. So it's just really fascinating to me that they chose to show him at kind of the very beginning and then the very end and nothing in the middle, at least so far,
Hmm.
because it gives us kind of the two extreme ends of this person's effectiveness. But there was ostensibly some sort of climb within the WLF organization in the middle where he garnered all of these followers and respect and everything. But what we're seeing is an organization, in decline or at least under threat. So I just thought it was an interesting choice. He's not totally calm, cool, competent, in control anymore. He is actually maybe losing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what this world is doing to them, and or maybe the reactions to that. I wonder if we're in for more flashbacks because I think it feels like that may be what's coming. But I think that this is just such a great illustration of these different groups of people having justification for doing the things that they're doing. And that exchange between both of them where it's like, well, you killed our children. It's like, well, you killed our children. And then the philosophies behind that. It's like they both have justifications for these atrocities. And so I think that that's going to be examined even a little bit more as we get into the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So I find it
And yeah, the answers that Isaac is trying to get from this prisoner is what's the location of the next attack? And I think that's kind of what we're looking at when we're in the TV station. That is the location of the next attack, and it's already happened. But yeah, it really fascinating scene with Isaac here. And one other thing that's interesting to think about is, so 11 years ago he leaves Fedra. Present day, he's commander of this group, which was called out in another flashback that was 5 years ago when the Fireflies were leaving Salt Lake. They were like, there's this guy, Isaac, who runs this group in Seattle, and he would take us in.
Mm.
So in the 6 years between leaving Fedra and joining the WLF, he's become the leader of the WLF and is still to this day. Ah, chronology. Don't you love it? Somebody keeps calling me over and over again. I don't know who they are, so I'm not going to answer. Um, and so back in the TV station, guy comes in and is like, I don't care if there's babies in here. He doesn't say that, but it might as well have. It was so absurd. And then they have to
That's
scramble.
like if there's a toddler or something.
That was yeah, let's call like a throwback to when they were like, what if there's a baby who needs help in the grocery store from episode one, I want to say.
I took that as perhaps there were members of the WLF who were uncomfortable with perhaps the slaughter of the carved face people in the forest last episode. Maybe the cult or whatever it is has, um, a lot of children or families in it who are participating or at least present for some of these raids, and there's dissension about whether or not they should be targeted or not. That's kind of how I took that statement.
Wait, you think that was a call for moderation from this guy?
No, I think that certain members of the WLF perhaps have expressed queasiness about the killing of children, as the WLF did in the forest last episode, shooting the little girl in the head and all the rest of the families and stuff. And so that guy was saying, I don't care who's here, even if there's kids here, we're gonna find him and shoot him. That's kind of what I got from that.
We are still in the TV station. The guys are saying silly things. The girls are hiding and they're separated. Ellie goes upstairs. Dina's kind of unknown location, I want to say, during this, because the guys are doing their sweep, and one of them is like, he hears something that leads him to follow Ellie upstairs where she's trying to get out a window. It's a pretty tense little scene.
I was
Um,
I was squirming.
yeah, but Ellie's close quarter combat training from Jesse comes in handy here. She actually kind of easily overpowers this guy because by the end of that struggle, and maybe he was distracted because his buddy comes in and is pointing a gun at him, and you can see the guy waving his arms like, "Don't shoot me." Then she's yelling at Dina to shoot out the window, and then like one-handedly is like stabbing the guy in the head. Like she kills him so easily after that. I was pretty impressed, unless it looked too easy because he's big. He's not a little guy. Any thoughts about that?
No, but I actually was like, this is the combat training we're seeing it in real life and in real time. So that was kind
Oh,
of good.
they're not pulling their punches, we can
Nope.
imagine.
Nope.
But so they kill two wolves. Dina shoots one in the back, and Ellie stabs the other one in the head.
I
And then
was
they,
wondering if that was Dina's first kill to follow up on our
oh,
conversation from last week that we never
yeah,
got to hear the end of.
I wonder too. And we certainly don't have time to discuss it later. Like there's no time for a debrief because when they get to the theater, other things happen. But in the meantime, there's a lot going on here where they're escaping down a fire escape and then running down alleys and having a claustrophobia moment when they have to crawl through a little hole that, the advantage of being two slight 19-year-old women is they can crawl through little holes that these bigger WLF people are like, we'll go around.
I have to say that this uh, scene has one of my biggest quibbles, which is that it simply does not rain like that in Seattle. We get we get maybe like two storms a year that have thunder at all, and it's not like that. And then the volume of rain is just way, way, way too high. Seattle tends to be like a gentle mist on you consistently for like a week. We don't get like a huge amount of rain all at one time like that. So that was some real like, southern USA rain, like some Georgia rain or Florida rain or something. That was not Seattle rain on any level. It would not drench you immediately like that.
What's happening in this world? Maybe climate change has shifted. You have no idea.
I will say the rain is and the yeah, the rain and the impacts of rain and uh, erosion on the city of Seattle are huge in the video game. Like the street, sometimes there are streets that are completely washed away and have become rivers. And maybe it's because this is like a several day storm, I think also is kind of the idea that you get in the video game. So I think we might have more rain scenes coming, Kyle, is the good news.
Get
Well,
ready. Get ready to manage your trauma, friend.
Um, and so they crawl through this tunnel, which I would be like, this is not actually a good idea, because what if it just stops? But they manage to emerge into this tunnel, subway tunnel, and we hear one of the WLF say they've gone into the transit tunnel, I want to say. Let's go around to the south entrance. Is there a subway in Seattle?
there is a subway in Seattle. There's the link rail. It was not open in 2003. So that part set off because I just knew that it had opened more recently than that. And it also, quite famously, at least here in Seattle, does not have turnstiles. It has a tap on, tap off
Hmm.
kind of card system.
It's
So
more modern, and that feels like a East Coast old school.
yeah, this
Yeah.
really felt like a Chicago subway station to me more so than a Seattle subway
God, I
station.
hate going through those things with my kids. It's
Because they're
so
on one
stressful.
side and you're on the other.
Yeah, and you're like, and
Yeah.
they don't know how to do it, and God, yeah, subways are stressful with little kids. Anyway, before we get to the turnstile moment, which is a very fun moment, Ellie and Dina emerge into the tunnel. They're like, okay, let's get out of here. Hopefully, this place doesn't collapse on top of us. Some concerns about structural integrity, but then they hear the WLF are inside, and they're throwing those red flares and pretty quickly, even though the WLF are not being super duper loud, they had made a bang sound when they entered the station, which is how Dina and Ellie know that they're there. But then quickly and I love that this is one of Dina's superpowers, that she can tell by listening to the clickers how many there are, and she's shown it in episode one. She shows it here too.
And I
And
love
I,
how
yeah,
Ellie's just watching her
uh-huh,
hand
uh-huh,
because it's like, oh man, we're like, it is very interesting. The tension here is they build it really, really well because there's the tension of them being, basically uh hunted by the WLF, and then we just hear that an entirely different element is going to come in, and it's just, which enemy do you choose, and which threat is the worst. And just as the count keeps going up and you hear the screeches, it's really, I liked this scene a lot, and it's again super stressful to watch, but I thought that the editing and the cinematography here and the little camera angles this was really well done.
yeah. And the scene goes bananas. In the video game, there are maybe 6 or 8 clickers, I want to say, in this scene. I guess maybe that depends on your difficulty settings. I don't come at me if I'm saying a low number. But it's manageable, right? And this is one of my favorite mechanics in any video game because it really shows off how strong your AI is in a video game. Is if you have two sets of like there's a three-way fight, right? There's the protagonist, there's the two other factions, and they all want to fight each other and kill you at the same time. I just love the way that when they set this up in a video game. And so one of my favorite things to do in this part of the game is just like hide or throw like a thing that will lure the clickers toward the humans, that doesn't, impact me as the player, and it's a lot of fun. But there are way more than 8 clickers in this scene because suddenly there's a mob and there's what, like 100, it feels like. And Dina and Ellie have to escape into the subway cars. Ellie shows some real good proficiency in panic firing her weapon, her handgun. I think she gets like kill after kill, even though she just seems to be like jerking her hand out and shooting at zombies. I also really like the Foley work in here because it sounds really cool. The way the gun noise sounds really cool inside the train car, even though I feel like it would be really loud and echoey, it's somehow dampened. But anyway, that was a weird thought I had while I was watching it.
I have to say, I'm a little concerned between the um Abby's escape from the zombies in episode two, I guess.
Hmm.
And then this one here in the train car. I'm a little concerned that the zombies in the show are getting kind of nerfed. That is a lot of zombies for two people to be able to defeat and escape. And it just feels like it's been a little while since the zombies have really gotten someone that we cared about, like a named character that we cared about. And they
Hmm.
don't feel like the same force that they did in season one to me quite. Like this horde of zombies feels way less scary and dangerous than the one that overwhelmed that like militia in Kansas City in episode 6 or 7 last season. Um, so I don't think it's quite a problem yet, but I think they should stop having characters be able to escape from this overwhelming number of zombies because it just feels like the zombies are getting less and less perilous over time.
Hmm.
And maybe that has to do with the show kind of losing interest in zombies a little bit in favor of these kind of like just generic post-apocalyptic factions fighting each other. But I was still very stressed out during this whole scene, but it did not really give me a genuine sense of danger for the main characters, and I think that could be a little bit of a problem for the show.
Yeah.
I feel like I agree with you on the peril in these kinds of moments, and I was stressed out watching this. But I feel like there's a fear in other subtle ways, like the fact that they're evolving and learning, and so the threat from them may be coming in it from a different direction that they're not expecting. So I almost feel like maybe this is a deliberate choice so that when something even weirder and worse happens later, that it's even more terrifying. Because like as the zombie horde, they feel almost unthinking, like this big entity that's just mindless to some extent, or just one mind, I guess. But um, going back a little bit to what Stuart was saying about the fear when Dina starts coughing like that, I'm not unconvinced that that's not a thing. And there's part of me that thinks that they're, they're going. Well, we'll talk about in the next scene the direction that I think maybe they're going in, and I may be wrong. Maybe this is just a red herring.
Hmm.
um this I feel like the fear is going to take a manifest in a different way. But this is an incredibly close call that feels like maybe they shouldn't have escaped. So I agree with you on that point.
Yeah, okay. So the way I see this is having been Ellie in these scenarios, you're going to die a lot trying to get through this part of the video game, right? And it's a perfect run to actually make the escape. And so if you think of it that way, which is maybe completely immersion breaking, and you're like, this is not a video game, Stuart. This is a TV show. Yeah, noted. But also, I died a lot trying to get out of the subway station, or at least I think I did. So it's a perfect run, Kyle. Just think about it that way. They nailed all of their button combos,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and they
You
have
know,
plot armor. But
and the plot arm, it's not like I expected either of them to die, but this show did, has killed off main characters before, but it's been a while since the main character was killed by zombies.
yeah,
They've been killed by other people. So,
yeah, that's fair. That is fair. And we'll see how the rest of the show goes. But I mean, yeah, so the WLF doesn't stand a chance, but like you're saying, you don't really care if they live or die, but they're dying to the zombies. I think it's really interesting that you bring up the specter of Kansas City because I think that this sequence also really tells you like so there's two factions of humans who are fighting it, duking it out here. And as the WLF say when they start hearing the clickers, I thought it was clear down here. It was. So because they've been distracted in fighting other humans, kind of like what's her name was distracted by the manhunt for those two fugitives in Kansas City, and in that vacuum, the fungus wins, right? It rises up and takes and does what it needs to do. So I feel like that's that same lesson we're seeing here again. Um, and then that takes us to the turnstile where it has not been greased enough. Nobody's been greasing this turnstile.
shouldn't exist in the first place, but having existed, it doesn't do its job very well.
Having existed, it saves their lives because otherwise it would have been something you could just jump over and nothing's going to stop that horde except for their inability to go one at a time through one of those little turnstile gates. Um, and okay, so Ellie sticks out her arm and gets munched on by a zombie, and Dina They don't talk about it in the moment, but you can tell that Dean is thinking about it as they get up onto the surface level and go into the theater.
Which, by the way, is modeled on and looks quite similar to the Paramount Theater in Seattle, which is a real place that I've been many times. So it's kind of
Oh,
cool to
cool.
see.
In the inside also, the lobby.
The lobby has some big chandeliers and stuff. I think the lobby of the Paramount's a little smaller,
Yeah, it's
and
huge.
it has more like staircases and bars and stuff, so it doesn't feel as cavernous inside. But the outside looks quite similar with kind of the vertical sign and then the billboard across the front.
Is that like the old school theater that like the sci-fi theater, or is this a different theater I'm thinking of?
It's not a movie theater. It's
Oh,
like
it's
a it's
the
like
old.
a play theater.
Cool.
Mm.
I
Well,
saw I saw Hamilton and also Hades down there.
oh, cool. Yeah, I think in the game this is definitely a theater because there's a big backstage area too. So once they get inside, Dina is the wheels have been turning for her. Ellie, for some reason, has forgotten, I think, that she got bitten. And is just like, oh, I'll close the door. I'll put a chair in front of it. Let's. She's just thinking about logistics and not looking
No,
at
no,
Dina
no. I think
to
she knows exactly what is
no,
happening.
because she looks down at her arm after she sees Dina pointing a gun at her. She's like, what's going on? Wait. And she like has a moment of like,
Well,
oh, that's right. I got bitten 10 minutes ago.
she also is not like she's immune and she knows it, so it's a little different
Yeah,
for
so
her.
she's not thinking about it at all. Which and because of the adrenaline and everything, it's totally understandable. But it's like it almost kills her the fact that she hasn't been explaining this for the last a few minutes to Dina because then she has what 3 sentences she has to be able to say to save her own life. And I do like the way that they approach this scene. She doesn't have a lot of time because I mean Tess took a few scenes to turn, and even when she was turning, she still managed to light herself on fire.
I
You know,
I felt like Dina's reaction to this was a little muted. Somebody tells you this insane news, and she's just kind of like, okay, I guess I'll just watch you. She doesn't say, how do you know? Oh my God, this is the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. We get the reveal of Dina's pregnancy shortly after this, and that's treated as a way more momentous piece of news. I don't necessarily have a problem with them being excited and happy about Dina's pregnancy. I do have a, I wish they would have been a little bit more here for her to be like, holy shit, you're immune.
Feels like she's in complete shock though, because she's really not like she looks like I don't even know what to do with this, and complicated by her feelings for Ellie, obviously.
yeah,
But
it's a big 180 to have to go through emotionally. Like I'm gonna have to kill this person who I like to, oh, maybe I don't, but also I'm pregnant. I got a lot of things going on. I'm in a glass case of emotion, etc. In the video game, of course, this doesn't happen because the reveal happens through spores, not through a bite, where I forget exactly how it happens. Probably Ellie's mask gets broken, I think, in a room full of spores. If you recall, HA, that's one of those transmission mechanisms from the video game that they use mycelia mostly in the show. I have a feeling spores are coming based on the preview of the next episode. So I think that at some point they decided, oh, let's do spores too. So that's gonna be fun. But yeah, so and I feel like the reaction from Dina to the revelation that Ellie is immune in the video game is kind of like a whoa, that's crazy, but also it doesn't go much more than that, Kyle. So I feel like maybe that's just how they think Dina would react to this kind of thing. Also, she is pregnant. She's got a lot going on.
That's true.
yeah, so now I'm gonna say, and I mean, I have no idea what happens in the show, whatever, but the clicker noise, the way that we know that Ellie is immune, part of me is like, are they going down this path where Dina's creating another immune person? So that's something I was
Huh.
thinking about when I'm hearing the clicker noises that Dina had made. And
Boy,
maybe
I totally missed that. You guys are both bringing it up, and I gotta go watch that scene again because I just remember her throwing up. I didn't remember hearing any clickery noises during
it's
that time.
It's
it's like
really
a
little.
it's little, but it's enough that it sounded like it. So I was like, I actually was like, is there a clicker somewhere around there? And I'm like, oh no, is it her? And is this something? So that was my immediate thing, is that she's pregnant and maybe she's going to create another immune baby or something weird like that's going to happen. I could absolutely be off base and wrong, but that is something that I kept thinking even in this scene when she reveals the pregnancy to Ellie and that Ellie's immunity is revealed to her. So,
Kyle,
um,
if you watch it, 26 minutes into the episode is when they find the bodies with the guts hanging out, and really shortly after that is when Dina throws up, and it's just one noise that she makes that is
yeah.
triggering all of this conversation. So it could definitely not be anything.
And we have been known to just go completely wild about things like this in the past. So this could be absolutely a fool's errand,
Just
but
malarkey, just pure malarkey. Okay. So they're in the theater. Ellie's compromise is I will sit in this chair and go to sleep. You will sit up all night and watch me. Um, and then she wakes up in an unfortunate way that almost gets her killed again because there's water on her face and she goes, ah, when she wakes up, which is, very normal. Uh, but then she like shows her the tooth marks. Dina admits that she's pregnant, and they m make love and wake up the next day to breakfast jerky.
yes, which apparently repairs morning breath. I don't know how that works.
I mean, it just changes it into something else. But yeah,
Uh,
interesting dialogue here about, Dina basically is saying, I hooked up, I decided to hook up with you because I thought I'd lost you, and this future I was envisioning of us raising this child might not happen. And so they go from zero relationship to 100 million because now they're all going to raise a baby with Jesse. Is the idea.
I bet
Uh,
there are lots of, non-traditional family cohorts in this world.
in Jackson,
Yeah.
where Seth lives. Yeah, I'm sure there's tons of polyamorous relationships going on in Jackson, and Seth is just the only guy who is not cool with it.
Like clinging on to his outdated ideas of family, units.
Um, and so they're having this fun little like, oh, thank goodness we're not going to have to kill Ellie moment when they hear on the radio and they hear explosions happening and they run up on the roof and see things blowing up and more scenes of Seattle skyline. Which Kyle, did you see anything that looks right or wrong or in between?
No, they've maintained the Alaska Way Viaduct in most of the wide shots, which is kind of fun. That's a elevated freeway in Seattle that was torn down a few years ago in favor of a tunnel and has really improved Seattle to have that torn down, but some longtime Seattleites are really attached to it. But it appears here, which it kind of matches people's old-fashioned vision of how the city used to look, which is kind of fun.
That's fascinating. And they've heard Nora's voice on the radio too, which is their next clue on how to proceed, because Nora was one of the WLF people in the room.
You know, it's really evident that this season is really preoccupied with cycles of violence. So we have, unlike the small scale, Joel killing the Fireflies, and then Abby killing Joel, and then now Ellie and Dina pursuing Abby. And then, kind of on the larger scale, you have WLF versus Fedra, and then Cult versus WLF. So you kind of have a mirroring effect there. And I think it's really tragic that in this moment, when they're talking about the baby and they're getting so excited, it's like the first time Ellie has really forgotten that Joel's dead since he died.
Hmm.
And there's like a lightness to her in that moment that's really, kind of a breath of fresh air. It's more like how she was before this trauma. And you almost get the sense that they might turn around, that they might give up on it
Why don't
until
why don't they?
until that boom happens. And then they hear that, and then they hear the thing on the radio, and they both immediately remember why they're there, not just Ellie, but also Dina. And they're immediately back into kind of like planning mode. And it's just, you just get the sense that maybe if that hadn't happened right at that moment, maybe they would have had the conversation about like, well, you're pregnant now, so we obviously need to turn around kind of thing. And they
It,
don't get to have it because the outside world intrudes. And it's just you can feel it almost building to that, and then they get interrupted, and it just is so tragic in a way.
AJ,
No,
thoughts?
I had, it was definitely this moment that is very short-lived, but also the tragedy of it and the fact that they now have to go and deal with something else.
But they don't have to.
Well, they don't have to, and so I guess that's the decision that they're making. Um, but um, but I guess there is a little bit of an idea, not just about, that there's more of a potential threat to their larger world if they don't. And I don't I think it's going to get even more tragic for whatever reason. So it was a hard note to end this episode on, where it's sort of like you had that one little moment, that 28 days later grocery store moment, a respite, so to speak, and then
Yeah.
you have to kind of go back into the reality of what this existence is, which is, you know, probably not one where both of them are going to end up alive. So,
I think it's just great contrast for the tragedy that is the path that they're on, is this moment of like we're all raising a baby together to, and then Ellie even says it to Dina, like, this is, everything has changed, don't come with me, but Dina insists, and so they are going to go together to whatever is happening next, to go find Nora, and then find out Abby's location from Nora. They've also had a conversation before the whole revelation about pregnancy and immunity, that if they find other wolves inside who weren't in Jackson, they're going to kill them anyway.
mm.
And I think this is informed by finding the bodies of the scars outside of Seattle. But still, it's kind of wild to hear. I mean, Ellie doesn't say anything, but Dina just looks at her and says, "Agreed." Like they're basically just there to kill whoever they can find at this point, and that's a weird road to take. Um,
Well, I do think that this is also, again, the parallels that they're drawing between Abby and Ellie, and whether Ellie is going to make different choices than Abby did. And so I do think that that's absolutely going to happen as we get into the rest of the season.
yeah,
That they need to these are two people that are honestly, um their their whole paths in life are now, they have some parallels, but part of it's the choices that you make. So I do feel like this is a very specific choice, uh, and there this was sort of like the place where they could have chosen a different path, and Ellie especially is not going to, but Dina is also like, you know what? If you're going, I'm going, and so it's affecting both of us. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. And again, I'm already anticipating the tragedy. But maybe I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. So we shall see.
oh, we'll hold you to it. Any final thoughts on the episode or on what comes next, Kyle?
I wonder where the rest of the Jacksonians are. We didn't see anybody, not Tommy, not Jesse. I'm just curious what they've been up to. Maybe we'll get a glimpse of that next episode.
Yeah.
We might do. Where's Gail? What's she up to? Uh,
And
uh,
I need more Catherine O'Hara in this show.
yeah.
I let's just get Catherine O'Hara and Jeffrey Wright in the same scene, and I'll be happy.
Wow. Yeah, he's got a lot of unpacking to do. Okay. Well, then I think we can hang up our spurs for this one and come back and attack the next one next time. You can let us know your thoughts about day one, by emailing us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. And you can find the rest of our episodes online on Podbean at reanimated.podbean.com. And we thank you for listening, and toodaloo.
Farewell.
Yeah, it's on the flip side.